All right. Shalom, family. It's your brother Kanaiba coming at you once again with this video titled, Was Takeoff Sacrificed? My critique from a spiritual vantage point. Okay. So as you probably know already, the brother Takeoff, who was part of the musical group The Migos, he was actually murdered. Okay, he was murdered the day after Halloween. Okay, it was actually early that morning on November the 1st. Okay, it was around 2:30. Okay, I believe it was a little after 2:30, they say, that he was actually murdered. Okay, and what I want to do is I want to give my critique on this situation from a spiritual vantage point. Okay, because when I look at this thing, everything seems to point towards this being a sacrifice. Now, of course, I can't say 100%, but just looking at all the evidence, everything that I've gathered so far, everything seems to point towards this being a sacrifice. Okay. Now, what really makes me happy is it seems like more and more people are starting to look at these things from a spiritual vantage point. All right. Because I've looked at different videos from different YouTubers concerning this situation, and it seems like a lot of them seen the same thing that I saw, okay, when this, situation transpired, okay? Especially dealing with that music video, okay? If you didn't know, they, when I say they, that's Quavo and Takeoff, they released a music video on Halloween. Okay, and everything about that music video seemed to be predictive programming. Okay, it seemed to point towards, Takeoff being, taken away off the stage of life, so to speak. Okay, but yeah, we're gonna take a look at that particular music video. Okay, we're gonna look at some still shots rather. So I won't, get a copyright or get the video blocked. But we're going to look at some still shots, some key points in that music video. Okay, we're going to also look at the article from TMZ. There's a few points in that article that I want to shed light on and dig deeper in that as well. Okay, so without further ado, let's actually get into this thing, and let's see what you all think. Let's see if your brother Kanaiba is reaching on this one. All right, so let's get to it. So opening up, this is the article from TMZ. Okay, and the title reads, it says, exclusive details, Takeoff, dead at 28. It says, shot in Houston. Okay, now, the first thing I really want to point out is always look at TMZ's, look at their color scheme. It's black, white, and red. Okay, I mean, this alone should let you know that this is dealing with sacrifice. Okay, of course, the color scheme, black, white, and red, I've said on past videos, it's dealing with what's known as the black mass. Okay, sacrifice for the deity Pan. All right, so whenever you see that color scheme, your mind should automatically think sacrifice. Okay, or you should look into those things. Okay, that's a dead giveaway, right? But again, it says dead at 28, shot in Houston. Now, the fact that he actually was murdered in Houston, that says a lot, because it's a play on his name. Okay, the brother's name, or his stage name, is Takeoff. Okay, so Houston, of course, is known for what? The Houston Rockets, right? Houston is also known for NASA, right? And the fact that he was murdered in Houston, of course, again, that's a play on his name. Okay, Takeoff, like dealing with rockets, spaceships, or well, not spaceships, but Yeah, dealing with rockets and things of that nature. Okay. So the article goes on and it says, Takeoff. 1/3 of Migos is dead after an early morning shooting in Houston. It says TMZ Hip Hop has confirmed. It says law enforcement sources and multiple witnesses tell us the fatal incident went down shortly after 2:30 a.m. Now make a mental note of that, because we're gonna come back to that. That's significant, right? So the article goes on to say this. It says that's when cops got the call for a man shot at a bowling alley called 810 Billards and Bowling, Houston. So now make a mental note of the name of the bowling alley, especially that number 810. Okay, because that's actually significant. Okay, those two things, the time that it happened, which is shortly after 2:30, and the name of that bowling alley, 810. Okay, we're gonna shed some light on that. Okay, so now let's scroll up a bit. And the article continues by saying this. It says, we're told Takeoff and Quavo were there playing dice when an altercation broke out, and that's when someone opened fire, shooting Takeoff either in the head or near to his head. I believe it really was a headshot. And it says he was pronounced dead on the scene. Okay. Now from, what I've been hearing, Takeoff really didn't have anything to do with the altercation. It was really Quavo. Actually got into it with another party. Okay. I believe it may have been over the dice game. I'm not too sure, but Quavo actually felt disrespected. Things got out of hand, and shots were fired. And I believe Takeoff was actually shot by somebody in their own entourage by mistake, from what I'm hearing. But we know. I don't believe it was a mistake. I don't even think the altercation was real. Okay, me personally, from a spiritual vantage point, I mean, this was really a setup. Okay, but we'll get more into it. But anyway, let's continue with the article. And it reads, it says TMZ Hip Hop has obtained footage from the scene, and you can see Quavo in an orange shirt and others gathered around Takeoff. At first, they tried to move him, but then put him back down, and Quavo yelled for someone to get help. Okay, now, I didn't actually show the actual photo, but, the images are floating around, and what you have to pay attention to is they made sure to put emphasis on that orange shirt. Okay, Quavo was wearing an orange shirt. Now, if you've been watching my channel for any amount of time, I've spoken about that color orange and, how it represents the number 33. Okay, that color orange, it represents the number 33. And we know the number 33 represents sacrifice, and it represents enlightenment. Okay, so again, this is why TMZ had to make it a point to point out that Quavo was wearing the orange shirt, which again, I'm not gonna put anything on the brother, but that's very suspect. Okay, could this have been his sacrifice? Okay, could he have sacrificed his nephew? Okay, I'm gonna let you be the judge of that. Okay, especially as we go further into this video. Okay, but continuing on, and the article reads, it says police tell us 2 other people were shot and were taken to the hospital in private vehicles. We do not know their conditions. Quavo was not injured. Okay, so the person who was pretty much involved in this altercation, he wasn't injured at all. Okay, that's suspect. Okay. The quote-unquote innocent bystander, his nephew, is the one that was murdered, but yet you're the one that was actually involved in the altercation. Okay, we'll let you all ponder on that. Okay, but anyway, let's continue. So the article ends by saying this. It says, just a couple of hours before the shooting, Takeoff posted a pic of himself lighting up at the bowling alley. It says Quavo had posted a video several hours earlier as he drove around Houston with Jay Prince, who was celebrating his birthday. Okie dokie. So, now that we have that information, okay, now we want to delve into this a little bit deeper. Okay. And since they actually mentioned it about, what Takeoff had posted earlier that day, if I'm not mistaken, one of the last things he posted on Instagram was a song, and I believe it was called Stop Breathing. And I mean, now, did he know he was about to be taken off the stage? I don't think so, but it's just funny the way these things line up, looking at this from a spiritual vantage point. Okay, it's just very, very peculiar that he would post something like that, not very long before he was actually murdered. Okay, but let's go back to the beginning of this article, and let's refresh your memory on some things. Okay, so this is the beginning of the article. Now, if you look at the second paragraph, remember it said that he was murdered shortly after 2:30 a.m. Correct? I told you to make a mental note of that because we were going to come back to that. Okay, and also the name of the bowling alley, right? That number 810. Okay, that's very significant. Okay, let's actually deal with that first. Let's deal with the bowling alley. Let's deal with this 810. Okay, let's get the gematria calculator and let's look at some things. All right. So this is the gematria calculator. Okay, and I typed in the name Takeoff. Right now, let's look at the numbers. Now, of course, Takeoff actually, when you add the letters up in the gematria calculator, it comes out to be 64. Okay, dealing with the ordinal. Okay, that's dealing with when you look at the gematria calculator, the ordinal, of course, would be the letter A would be 1, B 2, 3, C 3, so forth and so on. Right, but I want you to look at all of these numbers. Now, your spidey senses should be going off, okay? When you look at the ordinal, it's 64. 6 plus 4 is 10, right? Look at the reduction, 28. Now, mind you, the man died at 28 years old. Okay, that's one thing, okay? But the reduction is 28. 2 plus 8 is 10, right? Look at the reverse. 125. 1 plus 2 is what? 3 plus 5 is 8. Then you have to have the reverse reduction, which is 35. 3 plus 5 is 8. Do you see the thing? 2 of those numbers equal 10. The other 2 equals 8. Now, what was the name of the bowling alley that he was murdered at? 810. Okay, and you see this thing when you type in his name Takeoff in the gematria calculator. 810. Okay, just do the math, right? Now, if that's not enough for you, This should really be a dead giveaway. All the way down to the place where he was murdered at. This should show you that this was a setup. Okay? But let's look at something else here. Now, we're going to type in the word bowling. Okay? Because it was a bowling alley, correct? Now, when you look at this word bowling, let's look at this. The ordinal is 82. Okay? 8 plus 2 is 10. Look at the reduction. 37. 3 plus 7. 10. Right? Look at the reverse. 107. 1 plus 0 plus 7 is 8. The reverse reduction. 35. 3 plus 5 is 8. You see this theme of 8 and 10. Again, when you type in bowling, and they were at a bowling alley when he was murdered. Okay, again, everything points towards this being a setup. Okay, he was in the, I don't want to say the right place, but they made sure he was in a certain place at a certain time. Okay, because this sacrifice had to be made. And this is just me speaking from a spiritual vantage point. This is just my critique. Okay, but it's quite curious that when you type in these words, the running theme is 810. Okay, let's look at something else here. So as we know, the brother was shot in the head, correct? So what I did is I typed in headshot and the gematria calculator, and let's look at the numbers. Okay, it says the ordinal is 80. Of course, 8 plus 0 is 8. The reduction is 35. 3 plus 5 is 8. Correct? So now you have the reverse is 136. 1 plus 3 is 4 plus 6 is 10. Then you have the reverse reduction, which is 37. 3 plus 7 is 10. You see the theme again of 8, 10 when you type in headshot in the gematria calculator. Okay, now are these things just a coincidence, or is it how can I put something more sinister going on? Okay, to say the least. Okay, because if it was just one word, you could get away with saying, okay, Kaniba, you reaching. But I typed in three words or three terms that correlate with what happened that night concerning Takeoff. And you see the theme of the numbers 810. And the name of the bowling alley that they were at when he was murdered was called 810. I don't believe it's a coincidence. But again, this is just my critique. Okay, I'm going to let you all be the judge of that. All right. So now let's go back to the article. And remember, again, it said that, he was murdered shortly after 2:30. Okay, 2:30. Now, let's deal with that. Let's deal with that number 2:30 real quick. All right. Now, as you may or may not know, of course, on their latest album that they just did, okay, they just released a single on that album, and they released that single, I believe it was October the 7th, and the name of that single was, you guessed it, 2:30. Now, what are the odds, okay, that earlier that month, on October the 7th, they released this single called 2:30. And then, not too long after, okay, what is that? What is that, 25 days later or something like that? On November the 1st, that Takeoff is murdered around 2:30 in the morning. Okay, you got to understand that these things don't just happen by happenstance. Okay? You have to look at these things from a spiritual vantage point. Okay? Like I said in the beginning of this video, it seems like all the evidence is pointing towards this definitely being a sacrifice. Okay? But again, this is just my critique. Okay? I could be wrong. I could be reaching. I don't think I am, but maybe. I'm going to let you all be the judge of that. Okay? But with that being said, let's continue with the video. So if you actually watched that particular music video that they released on Halloween, mind you, you'll see that the video opens up with, both of them being asleep, but Quavo actually wakes up, as we see here, and notice how Takeoff is still asleep. Okay? And the way they framed this, especially him having the shades on, it's framed as if he looks like a person that's deceased. Okay, that's just me looking at it, but he looks like a person that's deceased. Okay? And then Quavo proceeds to call his name, I believe either 2 or 3 times in a row, trying to wake him up. Okay, and I believe that part of the video is definitely predictive programming. Okay, because, it was, Quavo was the one that was, pretty much yelling for somebody to get help after, Takeoff was shot. Okay, this to me, the fact that this video opened up this way, it just seems like predictive programming to me. Okay, and then once Takeoff actually wakes up, Quavo proceeds to tell him that he had a crazy dream. And if my memory serves me correctly, his words was, it was a messy situation. Okay, now this is just me, but if somebody gets murdered and over I can't even say over a dice game, but the dice game led to an altercation between 2 parties, and a person gets murdered that wasn't even a part of the altercation. To me, that's a messy situation. Okay, any way you look at it. Again, this just seems like predictive programming. Okay, they knew what was about to happen that night or early that morning. Okay, everybody knew, I believe, except Takeoff. Okay, but let's move forward. So if you're watching the video, of course, the video continues with Takeoff and him in his line. And, as he's rapping, he's walking through this particular house. Okay, as they said in the video, a haunted house. And he proceeds to walk in a room where they're actually gambling. Okay, and they're playing cards, and I'm looking at the table, looking at the center of the table. It looks like it could be 2 dice on the table. I can't really tell from here, but they're definitely gambling. It appears that they're gambling, and the altercation jumps off. Okay, so again, the fact that they actually showed this, to me, it seems like predictive programming. Okay, and like I said earlier, I'm happy that a lot of other people seem to have caught this as well. Okay, it seems like more and more people are looking at these things from a spiritual vantage point, which is a good thing. Okay, now the fact that they're putting emphasis on it was a dice game. Okay, when you look at that word dice, that's actually plural. 1 dice is actually a die. Okay, could this be, again, a play on words, letting you know that that Takeoff was meant to die? Okay, the fact that it looks like they're playing maybe a card game or whatever, could they be saying that this is the cards that he was dealt? Okay, you have to look at these things from a spiritual vantage point. Okay, they took a gamble on him, right? But anyway, let's move forward. Now, in this particular scene, okay, now I didn't implement this particular part of the video, but before this scene, it shows Takeoff actually walking up the stairs. Okay, this is pretty important. Again, when you look at Freemasonry, remember they deal with the stairway to heaven, so to speak. Okay, but Takeoff actually walks up the steps, and it leads to this scene with Quavo. Okay, now Quavo is actually in bed, and he was holding a gun. Okay, and you see here he placed the gun down, and it shows what seems to be a contract. Okay, so again, everything points towards this being a sacrifice. Okay, I mean this should be clear that again, when you get into this particular industry, okay, and once you make it so far up the ladder, okay, a sacrifice is required. Okay, that's what, this seems to be implying to me. Okay, now when you actually look at the music video, okay, Quavo is in bed, but there's two other people there as well. Okay, it's a man and a woman making out, but I believe this is actually metaphoric. Okay, when you actually listen to his line, he actually talks about how somebody slept with his girl and that was messy, right? But I don't think that's really what that was about. I think it was metaphoric. Okay, when you actually have a plan with somebody, what is the old saying? The saying is you are in bed with that person. Okay, so of course Quavo didn't actually pull the trigger directly, but whoever had a plan for Takeoff to actually be murdered, I believe this is a metaphor for Quavo being in bed with them. Okay, he was a part of the plan. Now, I'm not saying for sure, but this is just my critique. Okay, now when you actually watch the video again with Quavo in that bed, when you look at the pants he's wearing, they have a whole bunch of hands on them. Okay, again, I think this is metaphoric, letting us know that Quavo had his hands in this situation. Okay, but again, this is just me looking at this thing from a spiritual vantage point. Okay, so we have this scene with Quavo in bed with this gun and with this contract. Okay, and shortly after this scene, the very next scene after they show Quavo with this gun and this contract in bed, the very next scene is Takeoff. Okay, and as you see here, he's standing next to what is this, a poster or whatever it may be of the Grim Reaper, and it says R.I.P. Okay, now what was the point of this particular scene? And this particular scene, I mean, it's a very, very quick scene. Takeoff, he doesn't do anything. He doesn't even say anything. Okay, he stands there for a couple of seconds. He puts on his hood and he walks away. Okay, so I mean, again, one could argue and say that maybe he's venerating the Grim Reaper because he put his hood on. But I don't think so. I don't think he knows what's going on. Okay, this again is just predictive programming, letting us know what was about to happen to him, that night. Okay, on November 11th, that morning, really. Okay. So first we had the scene with Quavo in bed with the gun and the contract, which led to this scene with Takeoff standing next to the Grim Reaper, which says R.I.P. Now, again, you're going to see that this is in sequential order too. Now, which this scene leads us to this scene with Quavo and an elevator. Okay, now let's get to it. Okay, and like I said, I was real happy seeing other people actually peep this. Okay, but look at the bottom of the screen, the middle of the screen, at the bottom. Okay, look at the timestamp of this recording. Okay, it says 2:39. Now let me bring something to your remembrance. What did the article say? The article said that Takeoff was murdered shortly after 2:30. Okay, now, maybe I'm crazy, but 2:39 seems to be shortly after 2:30. Okay, so what are the odds? And notice they showed this scene with Quavo in an elevator. Okay, which leads me to believe again that this could very well have been his sacrifice. Okay, could this be a metaphor for, the fact that you made this sacrifice? Now, your either your career or just your place in the craft is now going to be elevated due to this sacrifice. Okay, now, and notice, look at what he's holding. He's holding what is this? Some type of suitcase or whatever it may be. But look at what it says. It says Call Duty or Call of Duty. Okay, so I think, again, this is an underlining message letting us know that this is something that had to be done. A call of duty is something that was in the making already. It's something that had to be done. He was called to make this sacrifice. Okay, but again, this is me looking at this from a spiritual vantage point. Maybe I'm reaching. I don't know. Okay, I don't think I am, but again, this is, again, for you to judge. Okay, we have to look at these things from a spiritual vantage point, but I believe this is a clear message that's being sent out. All right. So before I bring this video to a close, I want to talk just briefly about the particular day that he was murdered. Okay, he was murdered on November the 1st. Okay, and I mentioned this earlier in the video that November the 1st, when you dealing with dealing on the left hand side, paganism, November the 1st is the celebration of what's known as Samhain. Okay, it looks like it should say Samhain, but again, it's pronounced Samhain. Okay, it's November, officially it's November the 1st, but the celebration starts on Halloween. Okay, which again, that's why it's called All Hallows Eve. Okay, it's the eve of Samhain, right? But again, it's no coincidence that he was taken out on this day, okay, or on that day, because again, when you dealing with celebrities and that lifestyle, this is what they delve in. Okay, this is what they venerate. Okay, they are within the craft. Okay, so certain sacrifices have to be made on certain days. Okay, so let's get a little bit of information about this day, Samhain. Okay, this is from history.com, right? Now, I'm not going to read the whole article. I'm going to briefly read, the beginning of this article, the first paragraph, because that's what really gives us the insight on what this day is about. Okay, so here we have it, and it says Samhain is a pagan religious festival originating from an ancient Celtic spiritual tradition. In modern times, Samhain, a Gaelic word pronounced Samhain, like I said, is usually celebrated from October 31st to November the 1st. Now it should make sense why they released that music video on Halloween. Okay, you can't tell me that they are not familiar with these things. Okay, they're within the craft. Okay, they delve in on the left-hand side. All right. But again, it says it's usually celebrated from October 31st to November the 1st to welcome in the harvest and usher in the dark half of the year. It says celebrants believe that the barriers between the physical world and the spirit world break down during Samhain, allowing more interactions between humans and denizens of the other world. Okay, so again, like I said, I was gonna make this brief, but this really should be the icing on the cake. Okay, the fact that he was murdered on this particular day known as Samhain, and knowing what Samhain actually represents. Okay, it's a pagan religious festival, and they believe that, you know, the veil or the barrier between the physical world and the spiritual world, it breaks down during Samhain. Okay, you know, spirits are out there during this time. Okay, so it should make more sense why that this situation happened on that day. Okay, and this should really set a light bulb off in your head, because let me bring to your remembrance the video series I did last year dealing with the Travis Scott situation. Okay, the Astro World situation. When was that? Okay, that happened on what was known as a lunar Samhain. Okay, it happened around the same time as this situation with Takeoff. Okay, I believe the Astro World situation happened on November the 5th. That's why it was a lunar Samhain. It wasn't the actual Samhain, but it was a lunar Samhain. Okay, but again, it was a lot of death during that day as well, which I believe it was on November the 5th, that Friday, if my memory serves me correctly. Okay, but just again letting you know that what they venerate on the left-hand side. Okay, this is not something to play with, and any of you who may be thinking about, you know, pursuing that particular lifestyle, you want to be a part of that music world or whatever you may call it. Again, this is what they have to do. It's clear. And as you can clearly see, you know, this rap culture is really death culture in more ways than one. Okay? But anyway, this will actually conclude my video. And again, the title of this video was Takeoff, Sacrifice. My critique from a spiritual vantage point. Okay, and again, like I said, most of the evidence to me, it just points towards this being a sacrifice. Okay, I don't think this is just something that just happened, you know, based on some nigga nonsense. Okay, I believe that was just the front, that altercation. Okay, I believe there was a lot of people that were in cahoots or in bed with each other, you know, that knew what was going on. They were privy to what had to happen, okay, to the sacrifice that had to be made, okay? And, you know, there's a lot of evidence pointing towards this maybe being Quavo's sacrifice, okay? I can't say for sure. This is just my critique. This is just me looking at this thing from a spiritual vantage point, okay? So again, this video is for you to judge off of too. Okay, and it was a lot of more stuff that I actually could have added in this video, but I didn't want this video to be too lengthy. Okay, it's already so many other videos out there with, you know, people, you know, delving into this situation as well. Okay, and like I said earlier, I'm really happy to see, a lot more people are starting to, see these things. They're starting to really look at these things, from a spiritual vantage point, okay, through a spiritual lens. They're looking into these situations deeper than the surface level. All right. So with that, and as always, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, which is the name of the Heavenly Father. And I do so in the name of His only begotten Son, our Lord, our King, and our Savior, Yahweh Shai. And I want to thank all you brothers and sisters for tuning in. I hope this video was informative and edifying. And until next time, Shalom, family.